It's been 5 years since I covered every battle droid in the Separatist droid army, so I think it's about time for an update and an expansion. Here is every battle droid we've seen in Star Wars canon so far. During the High Republic era, it would appear that battle and enforcer droids were illegal, but Marchion Ro, the leader of the Nile, had dozens of some unnamed mirror-faced enforcers in his employ on his flagship, the Gaze Electric. But of course, by the time of the Clone Wars, battle droids had become far more commonplace. The B-1 battle droid was the standard infantry unit of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. They were fairly ineffective alone, but were easy to produce and were overwhelming in large numbers. Several variations of the B-1 existed, including command battle droids, which were distinguished by yellow markings and served in leadership roles for droid forces. Pilot droids had blue markings and served as pilots for certain Trade Federation and Separatist starships. Security droids had red markings and were responsible for protecting ships and important military installations like the Citadel prison on Lola Sayu. Rocket droids were used to hunt and destroy escape pods in the aftermath of a space battle. They were painted orange and black and had rocket packs and fusion cutters for their work. AAT drivers were painted with camouflage markings and piloted the armored assault tanks employed by the Separatist Army. Firefighter battle droids were painted black, yellow, and red. They had larger backpacks than standard issue, had built-in fire extinguishers, and also wielded larger fire hoses to put out any explosions that took place in a ship's hangar. Battlefront 2 introduced some B-1 variants that were largely just for gameplay or cosmetic purposes, like the Heavy battle droid, which came armed with a Z6 rotary blaster cannon. Jungle battle droids were painted with green camouflage similar to the AAT drivers and could be seen in action on the planet Kashyyyk. The mobile game Star Wars Galactic Defense introduced a handful of B-1 variants that have yet to be seen in larger story content. Grapple droids were painted white and green and were armed with large claws on their arms for close quarters combat. The Repeater Blaster droid carried heavier weaponry than a standard BD-1. Rocket launcher droids carried rocket launchers. You can see that they're mostly gameplay variants and not major departures for story purposes. The game also mentioned a B-1 RECON droid of some kind. Moving on to the B-2 or Super Battle droids, they were equipped with wrist blasters on their forearms, making them far deadlier, stronger, and more durable than their predecessors. The B-2HA were armed with rocket launchers that fired homing missiles. The B-2RP or Rocket droid came equipped with jetpacks that allowed them to fly. Later on in the Clone Wars, the B-2 Super Rocket droids appeared with upgraded jetpacks with large thrusters mounted on their shoulders. The B-2 Grapple droid was the successor to the B-1 Grapple droid, created for hand-to-hand combat. They were distinguished by their blue markings. The B-2 ACM Trooper was an upgraded version of the standard B-2 with larger laser cannons mounted on the wrist. Near the end of the war, the Separatists experimented with creating Cortosis-armored super battle droids that would make them invulnerable to lightsabers and blaster bolts, but the factory that produced them was destroyed before they could enter large-scale production. A handful of B-3 battle droids were seen near the end of the Clone Wars as well, encountered by the Jedi Master Quinlan Vos. The BX series droid commandos were one of the most advanced and deadly infantry units in the Separatist Army. They were nimble and acrobatic, proving to be more difficult targets. They were also more flexible in their weaponry, as they were seen wielding a variety of equipment, including vibro swords for melee combat. Commando captains were distinguished by white markings on their face and chest plates. Moving away from the B-series battle droids, the AQ series or AQUA droids were for fighting in aquatic environments like Kamino or Mon Cala. They were armed with a laser cannon in place of their right arm. The C-8 Saboteur droid was for spying and espionage and has so far only appeared in role-playing materials. The D-1 aerial battle droid was created by the Techno Union and could be seen on their planetary headquarters, Skako Minor. The D-1 was equipped with wings that allowed them to fly. Several IG series droids similar to IG-88 or IG-11 were employed by the Separatist Army, specifically by the Intergalactic Banking Clan. IG Lancer droids were a variant armed with lances and were often seen on cavalry or speeder bikes. IG-100 MAGNAGUARDs were used as bodyguards for the cyborg leader of the droid army, General Grievous. They were difficult to kill and were even able to operate without their heads for a time. They were armed with electrostaffs that could parry a Jedi lightsaber. Some unknown model of battle droid was seen during the Separatist invasion of the planet Hisric, likely under the employ of the droid mercenary ADW-4. The T-Series tactical droid was created to help lead the standard infantry units of the droid army. Although not strong in battle, it was far more intelligent and independent than the B-1 battle droids they commanded. The ST series, or Super Tactical Droid, was developed later in the war to be able to more quickly adapt to enemy strategies and changing battlefield situations. Droidekas, or destroyer droids, were feared by Republic forces. They were able to roll up into a ball that could travel at 75 kilometers per hour. When deployed, they had deflector shields and one repeating blaster cannon on each arm. They were deadly and difficult to destroy. A variant known as the Droideka Sharpshooter was armed with a single blaster rifle in the middle of its body used for sniping. The mobile game Star Wars Commander included two other Droideka variants. The Droideka Sentinel had a slightly different design and heavier firepower. The Droideka Oppressor was developed late during the Clone Wars and never saw official use, but some models could still be seen in the galaxy as a heavy artillery droid. The DSD-1 Dwarf Spider Droid was somewhat similar to the Droideka Sharpshooter in that it had one large laser cannon mounted on its face that was capable of one large burst or several smaller but more rapid blasts. J-1 proton cannons were basically just large droid cannons used for anti-aircraft. They fired proton bombs and were stabilized by 4 legs. The LM-432 Crab Droid was a small, 4-legged tank-like model, but there were variants that had 6 legs as well. 2 blaster cannons were mounted on its underside, and its legs were strong enough to break through the armor of enemy vehicles. The LR-57 Combat Retail Droid was rarely seen throughout the Clone Wars. It had 2 arms that each carried double laser cannons. They could be buried underground and used to set up traps for enemies who tripped their antenna. Infiltrator demolition droids were also a rare sight in the galaxy. They were made to be disguised as unassuming sweeper droids to sneak their way into high-security installations. They would then transform to neutralize enemy combatants and transform one final time into bombs to destroy their targets. Pistoka sabotage droids, or buzz droids, were created to board, cripple, and disable enemy starfighters. They could be loaded into missiles that would explode in front of a ship, releasing a near-unavoidable cloud of buzz droids. Chameleon droids have so far only been mentioned in role-playing materials, but they are likely the same as they were in Legends, where they were another type of sabotage droid able to lay mines and use holoprojectors to blend into their backgrounds. The Scudager 100 stealth droid was used by the Umbaran military. They were small and able to sneak into combat zones to electrify their targets. SDK-4 assassin droids were large and spider-like with 8 razor-sharp legs designed for assassination. It was capable of releasing 30 smaller SDK-4A mini-assassin droids from pores on its head to cause even more damage. Separatist probe droids were meant primarily for reconnaissance, but were capable of attacking or defending themselves with their equipped blasters. The HAILFIRE-CLASS droid tank was a wheeled droid armed with 2 missile launchers that each held 15 guided missiles as well as a twin auto blaster. It was originally created by the Intergalactic Banking Clan for the purposes of debt collection, which seems like an extreme level of overkill. The NR-N99 PERSUADER-CLASS droid enforcer was another model of tank. Able to travel through both land and water environments, it had 1 large tread down the center of its body and 2 smaller treads on either side. It was armed with ion cannons, heavy blasters, and missile launchers. Octuptara Tri-droids were 3-legged walkers used throughout the Clone Wars. The standard design stood at nearly 15 meters tall, but a smaller variant measured in at 3.6 meters. They were armed with 3 laser cannons or missile launchers and sometimes even carried biological weapons. The OG-9 homing spider droid was a 4-legged walker about half the size of the Tri-droid. It had a laser cannon mounted on the top and bottom of its central head. Droid harvesters were large, specialized walkers used to mine energy as seen on the planet Hisric. The VULTURE-class droid starfighter was the primary weapon in Separatist air and space combat. They were armed with 2 blaster cannons, 2 torpedo launchers, and could be loaded with buzz droid missile launchers. When on the ground or surface of a ship, they could transform into a walking mode. Like the B-1 battle droid, they were most effective in large, overwhelming swarms. The HYENA-class droid bomber was a Vulture variant built to specialize in bombing runs. They were more heavily armed with quad laser cannons, 2 missile pods that could hold proton torpedoes or concussion missiles, and a bomb chute that held 4 massively destructive proton bombs. Another Vulture droid variant appeared in a Forces of Destiny short. It has yet to be named, but was designed for spying and reconnaissance. The droid Tri-Fighter was faster and more maneuverable than the Vulture droid. It had a more advanced droid brain and was armed with 4 laser cannons, concussion missiles, proton torpedoes, and could also fire buzz droids for its payload. The heavy missile platform Droid Gunship was a very heavily armed airspeeder for use in the atmosphere. They were armed with 4 laser cannons, a medium laser cannon, and up to 28 missiles. They could also deploy B-series battle droids into the fray using racks. A droid called a Decimator was a small floating ball that used energy to search for and destroy any organic matter. It had laser cutters for accessing closed-off spaces in its attempts to chase and eliminate its targets. Despite fighting against a droid army, the Republic itself made use of some security droids. The GU-series Guardian Police Droid was used on Coruscant and was able to use force against sentient life if certain laws were broken. Spaceport police droids were seen on the planet Stobar and other deep space facilities throughout the galaxy. After the end of the Clone Wars, the fall of the Republic, and the rise of the Galactic Empire, droids built for the sole purpose of war were outlawed, but many organizations and even the new government used loopholes to keep very similar droids in circulation. Immediately following the Clone Wars, Imperial police droids could be seen on the planet Corellia, ironically protecting a droid decommissioning facility where battle droids were melted down. KX-series Enforcer droids were created to provide security to more important Imperial installations like the Citadel Tower on the planet Scarif. Imperial probe droids were the successors to the Separatist probe droid. The standard model had a blaster mounted on its body and a self-destruct mechanism. The 11-3K variant was smaller but was more heavily armed and armored. DT-series sentry droids were employed as guards on sensitive Imperial ships, but could also serve as combat training units. Their right arms included a built-in E11 blaster rifle. A variant of the design was painted white and was primarily used for training, but could be adapted to use live ammunition. The successor to the DT-series sentry droid was the Dark Trooper. They were created by the Imperial Remnant led by Moff Gideon after the Galactic Civil War. They were nearly 2 meters tall and deadly in hand-to-hand combat, but they were also armed with a large blaster rifle and held rocket boosters in their feet that allowed them to fly in space or in atmosphere. Phase 2 Dark Trooper armor also appeared in the mobile game Star Wars Commander, but I don't expect it to be officially canon as far as story material is concerned. Morgan Elsbeth of the planet Corvus, who was in league with the Imperial Remnant, had HK-87 assassin droids in her service. They could wield a variety of weaponry and were nimble and acrobatic similar to the BX Commando droid. The New Republic also made use of security droids after the surrender of the Galactic Empire. N5 sentry droids were used by the New Republic Correctional Corps on prison ships and other facilities like the Carthon chop fields. An unidentified security droid model was also seen on prisoner transports that resembled an R1 series astromech droid. The First Order improved upon a handful of Imperial droids, including the First Order security droid seen on the Titan refueling depot shortly after the destruction of Hosnian Prime. Their sentry droid models patrolled Star Destroyers and other important installations such as Starkiller Base. They seemed harmless at first glance, but were equipped with several hidden weapons that only revealed themselves when the sentry was threatened. Patrol droids wandered the surface of Starkiller Base to keep an eye out for intruders before they could make their way inside. They were reinforced by all-terrain patrol droids, massive walkers armed with 2 heavy laser cannons to ward off any invading forces. The First Order also had their own probe droids. The Spider probe droid shared some similarities with its Imperial and Separatist predecessors, but had extra armor plating that could open to reveal more probe droids hidden inside, each armed with blasters. A larger variant provided security in the unknown regions, keeping New Republic eyes away from First Order secrets. Another model of probe droid could be seen on the Star Destroyer Finalizer when it was in orbit over Batuu. Of course, some battle droids were employed by criminal factions as well. The S-43 Enforcer droid was used by the Hutts during the Clone Wars instead of the Separatists, but it was still based off of stolen droid plans from the Confederacy of Independent Systems. So far, it's only been mentioned in role-playing materials. Years after the end of the Clone Wars and the near extermination of the Geonosians who created the B-1 battle droid, a Geonosian queen named Karina created modified battle droids in an attempt to continue on the Geonosian species. The Pike Syndicate made use of Scorpinek droids when they attempted to take over the planet Tatooine for their spice trade. They stood tall with 4 legs, 2 dual laser cannons, and a formidable deflector shield that was difficult to penetrate. I feel like I should mention 000 and BT-1, who weren't mass-produced and were technically torture and assassin droids respectively, but when you've got as much firepower as BT-1, I think you deserve to be on the list. And finally, even though he is basically just a standard battle droid, I think Mr. Bones is worth a mention. He was a modified B-1 battle droid created by Snap Wexley during the Galactic Civil War. He was painted red and black, carried a blaster rifle, and had a vibroblade built into his right arm. His programming was far superior to a standard B-1, making him far more lethal. Although his body was destroyed, Snap saved his programming and years later was able to briefly upload it into a commando droid, which was also destroyed. And that's every battle droid in the canon Star Wars universe so far, I think. Honestly, this video got more and more complex as I wrote it. It kinda got away from me. I think I got every model, but if I forgot something, I'm sure people will let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel for more comprehensive Star Wars videos like this one. Let me know if there's other comprehensive lists you want me to cover in the comments. Follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.